I used this study guide to get a 7 on the hardest IB French exam, and now I'm giving it to you for free on nathanstutoring.com. Let's get into it. So based on my experience, what are the main points I would tell someone to study for the paper 2 reading comprehension exam? That is the hardest IB French exam in my findings, in my experience as an IB graduate and as a tutor as well, tutoring over 200 students since 2019. I found that the reading comprehension exam is the hardest because of the vocabulary level and the difficulty of the questions. So what would I recommend to study? These are the most important points. Firstly, you want to make sure you understand the questions. This is something that I practice in my study and that I would put in a study guide. You want to understand questions like en vous basant sur, which means like based on, questions like selon le texte, according to the text, or parmi les phrases suivantes, which means like among the following sentences. You have to be precise and accurate with how you answer the question, so you need to understand exactly what it's asking. I think this can trip up a lot of students where they're not adding enough detail, or they're adding too much and not being specific, or just generally missing the entire significance of what the question is asking. That's going to cost you marks. So really understanding what the question is asking is paramount. The next skill for the reading comprehension exam that's going to matter a lot is identifying synonyms, because a lot of the questions for vocabulary are asking you to find synonyms. When they ask a question like quel mot signifie, or trouver un synonyme pour, or quel mot veut dire, they're asking, like, they'll give an example of a word and they're asking for a word that means the same thing. You have to be able to understand synonyms in French. I will give one secret that I've found for this exam when you're finding synonyms. Usually the orientation of the words is the same. That's something that I found in my studies and that I will also include in your study guide. So what this means basically is, let's say you're finding a synonym for a word like désagréable. Désagréable, which means like disagreeable. If it ends in S, désagréable, like it's describing multiple people, the synonym you're going to look for is also going to be a plural synonym that ends in S or has some plural indication. Likewise, let's say they're looking for a synonym for like trouver, but it's like trouver in imparfait with il, like il trouver, like il plural, so it's trouvaient, trouver. The synonym you're going to look for is also going to be conjugated in il plural imparfait. So the orientation is the same, meaning if it's a verb, the synonyms that you're going to be looking for are both the same tense with the same subject. If it's an adjective, they're both going to have the same agreements. So gender and number are going to be the same. So that can help you narrow down the words a lot within the text, because contextually it gives you a more precise look at what you're trying to look for. So that's really going to be important. When you're finding synonyms, remember the orientation of the words is the same. That's a huge point to keep in mind for the reading comprehension exam. That's going to elevate your level a lot when you can practice that and be aware of it. The next thing I focused on for my study guide, and that I would include in yours, is finding keywords. Finding keywords basically means understanding specific nouns, verbs, adjectives, etc. that are relevant to the text. Obscure, probably like lesser known words. For example, if you're reading a text on the environment and there's a word like réchauffement climatique, which means global warming, that's a keyword because it's specific to the theme of environment. So you have to know what réchauffement climatique means basically in that context. The thing with keywords is you have to study them. And so you have to study various different topics to understand specific words relevant to a theme. Because then a lot of the times you have to find synonyms for keywords. And in those instances, knowing a subject, knowing topics like environment, healthcare, culture, immigration, a lot of those topics that are going to be covered on the text you're reading, that's going to be really important. So understanding and identifying keywords is big. As you study vocabulary, make sure you're looking for specific adjectives, nouns, especially adjectives, nouns, and verbs. I'd say the most of the keywords are going to be one of those, and they're going to be relevant to themes. So study different themes and organize your vocabulary in themes. That can help you a lot for your reading comprehension. That's something I did that allowed me to identify keywords, or at least understand context well enough that I could guess even if I didn't know a word. That's also really important. Inevitably, you're not going to know every word in the exam because it's a second language, but if you can know most of the context well enough to be able to make an estimated guess, you'll still do really well. I think the goal is to know as much as you can, obviously. So that's going to help you out. Organize your vocabulary into themed keywords. Ça, c'est très important parce que comme ça, nous développons une compréhension du vocabulaire qui est spécifique. So again, you're learning specific vocabulary. This is something I broke down in my other vocabulary guide, the IB French BSL vocab guide. Specific vocabulary and general vocabulary are all really important, but especially specific vocabulary based on the theme of the text you're reading is going to be really important for elevating your level. And so then the last thing you want to really focus on is the exam execution strategy. This is like all encompassing to how you actually write the reading comprehension exam. You have to understand that text A will be relatively simple, the easiest one, and it's usually all multiple choice, or there's like one small short answer. Text B is a bit harder, and it's like a mix of multiple choice and answers. And then text C is going to be the hardest, and it can encompass a lot of longer answers, a lot more vocabulary, synonym identification, true and false questions, fill in the blanks questions. You're going to see a lot more of that in text C. Keep in mind the paper 2 exam is only 1 hour. So a good strategy as well, perhaps, would be starting with text C. Now, obviously, you want to practice this when you're doing practice exams before the actual exam. Ultimately, find a strategy that works for you. It really depends on how well you perform with the organization that works well for you. So your study habits, your planning, and how you organize yourself, it's relevant from person to person. It really depends on what works best for you. In my findings, I'd start with text A, then do B and C. But I've seen other people start with text C, then do B, then A. So backwards order, because it allows you to get the hardest part done first so that you're not rushing towards the end. Because bear in mind, it is only 1 hour. And if you are struggling to understand the last text, you don't want to rush because it is the hardest and probably requires the most of your attention. And so in that sense, perhaps starting with that one is a good strategy. But again, find a strategy that works for you and practice it when you're doing practice exams, and then learn what's best for you. Execute on that, be consistent. And when you have a strategy that works, stick to it, and then just do it on the actual exam. So that on exam day, it's basically just repetition of what you practiced, and it's a lot easier with less pressure. So that's it. These are the things I would include in study guide. You can check this study guide out on nathanstutoring.com, absolutely free. The paper 2 handbook for a reading comprehension exam, how to answer the questions, how to identify synonyms, how to find keywords, and the exam execution strategy. These are all the points that you want to make sure you're covering to get a 7 on this exam. These are the base points you need to focus on. If you can do these and then obviously build your vocabulary level, build your overall comprehension level, you will do very well. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.